afternoon, everybody, and welcome. I'd like to say it's a real pleasure and honour and privilege to be here and to see so many people that I've been speaking to and that I've been working with for about two to 3 years now, and finally putting names to faces and seeing how tall people are, or whatever the case may be. So this afternoon I'm joined by an amazing panel again, people that I've been working with, speaking to, and people that have done some really amazing work in the community. I was going to introduce them. I even got them to do their bios. I'll still keep them. Yes, I'll use them for LinkedIn later on. All right. But what I'll do is I'll get everybody to kind of introduce themselves. Just to introduce myself, my name is Jacy Stewart, and I am the CEO and founder of For Business Sake. And For Business Sake is a social economy consultancy, and we work with infrastructure organisations, wholesalers as well, in trying to get support for social enterprises and charities from the Black and racialised communities and also diverse communities. So one of the reasons why I'm here today is I've received funding from the Connect Fund, and my application was really about diversifying the social investment and advisor market. So I've got a couple of some people here who are on our program. So Liz is one of our advisors, and also somebody who I did a case study on, who has been successful in social investment, who I'll be showcasing in November. I can't see her. Is Georgina here? No, can't see her right now. Okay, yeah, so I'll be showcasing that as part of the social investment or the grant I received from the Connect Fund. So in my travels, I've worked with a few of the people on the panel here today, and so we're looking. I'd like to introduce Kamran from Impact Bradford, Azzees from 2 to 3 degrees, Josh from representing Ubele, and Dr. Azzees, Innovating Minds. So without further ado, if you'd just like to kind of just introduce yourself briefly, and then what we'll do is we'll go into the question that is there on the board.
Thank you, Jacy. So my name is Kamran Rashid. I am the founder, chief executive of Impact of Bradford, but I'm also an England committee member of the National Lottery Community Fund and a board member of the Local Enterprise Partnership in West Yorkshire. And I was founding trustee of the City of Culture, which helped Bradford win the City of Culture 2025. And we were the lead partner on the Local Access Programme for Bradford.
We just push the button underneath the microphone. That's it.
Hi, I'm Dr. Asha Patel. I'm a clinical psychologist and founder of Innovating Minds, and we support children and families access early help and support. This came from my background of working with high-profile murderers and sex offenders in forensic mental health services.
I'm Josh Falconer-Roberts. I work at the Ubele initiative, which is an African diaspora-led infrastructure organisation supporting Black and racialised minoritized communities in the UK. And for Ubele, I lead on the flexible finance programme, which is blended finance loan grant fund that we operate under CIV, access and creating.
Cool. My name is Azzees Minott. I'm quite short, so I'll stand just so that you can see me. I'm co-founder and chief operating officer for a company called 2 to 3 degrees. We're a social enterprise, and we inspire and equip young people with confidence building skills that are necessary, but many of them probably didn't get when they left the school gate. And so we're talking about networking, confidence, self-esteem raising as well. And I'm sitting on this panel because we have received social investment from Sumerian partners, and I'll speak about our experience in that journey as well. But I'll be up and down like a juxtaposition.
Brilliant. Okay, so what we will hear is we will hear some combination of stories. We will hear some of the stories about social investment, but then we are going to leave you with some good stories about social investment. So here's the back. So at the moment, I'm actually going through social investment. So I'm going through social investment, and some of the issues and problems that I'm having, or some of the barriers that I'm facing, is a little bit of some of the navel gazing that kind of goes through when we're coming through to social investment. Some of it is quite tedious, and something that Dennis mentioned in the morning was about some of the trauma. So in terms of going into social investment, the trauma that is actually that comes up is it's the impact that we're trying to make, and the impact that we're trying to make is actually traumatic for some. So when it comes to social investment, you are putting that trauma down, but you're also then having to look through or being looked at through the lens of being able to repay it back. So although I'm going through it, it's a beautiful experience. It's a beautiful experience because I'm able to lead by example. And if I'm not able to get the social investment, then it's fine. But at least those that I work with can learn from the pitfalls that I've experienced. A good way, especially with the Connect Fund, and what this has been able to do, is we have 12 advisors on our Connect Fund, which is the whole advisory, diversifying the advisory market. And those 12 advisors have actually gone into their own communities and found these great stories of social investment. And that's really what, so I can see Georgina at the back right there, who is one of our case studies, who has had a great experience of social investment. And the panel also will have, the same similar traits. So Kamran, just looking at the actual question. So reaching further and fairer, the challenges for social investment in reaching underrepresented groups. I'm just going to give you this one, because that one's a little bit quiet.
So when I spoke earlier, I mentioned about, for example, the Muslim community in Bradford. If interest is something that they can't take or pay, then that is a challenge for taking social investment. So that's, I think, a clear barrier. But I think there's other barriers as well. When we've looked at organisations that are being in control of resources and doing the investment, if you've not had the leadership from the communities that you're trying to serve, then actually them accessing finance from social investors is difficult. And there is a couple of other points. I'll come back to you.
So mine comes from, I guess, our family scripts. So I grew up in an Asian community, in an Asian family where my parents grew their own business organically. You only knew of either a bank or you kind of organically fund growth yourself. So I actually didn't have any knowledge of investment or even thinking about social investment. Actually, looking back, it's your network is your net worth. And therefore, in my community, I wasn't around people that I previously raised investment or thought about even using, I guess how they describe it is you're basically using other people's money to grow your business. So because I wasn't in those circles or had people around me, I didn't even start to have the knowledge to even think about that. So I think that's really crucial to think about when we think about reaching those individuals.
But yeah, I think this question of the challenges for social investment reaching underrepresented communities is a great one. For me, so, yeah. For me, the starting point for this question, or where I start really is, I feel that social investment is essentially contending with history and systemic failures. And say we take black and racially minoritized communities that I most often work with, there's a sort of starting point around colonization of African, Asian, and the Americas, and the transatlantic slave trade, and essentially the kind of systematic exploitation and dehumanization of many people. I'd say this is also kind of coupled with the fact that our economy, our financial institutions, our financial practices, they were some of the main beneficiaries of those moments in history, and the legacies of those moments in history still kind of persist today. So for me, a key challenge also comes up with is comprehending that history and those legacies, and then doing the work to kind of undo, dismantle, kind of remove the artifacts of those and the systemic failures that exist today because of them. And yeah, I think we've got a similar story with different marginalized groups, whether it's women, LGBT groups, people with disabilities, etc., etc., etc. So yeah, that's the starting point for me. And yeah, I mean, you could go into, and I'm sure we will go into kind of the more sort of present and proximal issues that we're facing, the fact that, the communities that we work for, they've been historically unserved and underinvested in, and therefore don't have the networks. They kind of present as not investment ready when it comes to interacting with the social investment sector. And then there's the more kind of maybe internal structural issues within kind of social investment, the sector and the social investors themselves around kind of diversity and leadership and decision making, accountability, etc., etc. I'd love to kind of talk more about the potential solutions and the ways around these things. But I'm not going to kind of dominate this all right now. But one thing I did want to kind of say or kind of put out there is that I'm talking from my experience working with Ubele and finance and that kind of thing. My feeling is that we're all in this room in some way expert by experience in social investment. And I do kind of want to put it out there, like, whilst I'm sure there'll be time for questions, I would also really encourage if anyone else has kind of thoughts and feelings around kind of challenges that they're facing from their perspective in the social investment sector or seeing, or if you're a social entrepreneur, kind of the ones with experience in finance. I think in the spirit of this gathering and the kind of supposed to be sharing and collaborating on solutions. I really encourage you to put those out there and everyone to share kind of what they're seeing from their perspective as well.
Well, I think there's so many good points so far, so I'll just try and keep mine brief and to key points so you remember them. But just by a quick show of hands, are there any co-founders in the room? Okay, there's a few. Okay, so my first point is around time. So as a co-founder, one of the things that is often a barrier to me is my time resource. So right now I'm here, but I also run a team of 16. I'm also trying to scale one of our programs to across London. So I really should be writing a bid at this present moment because the deadline is on Wednesday. In addition to managing the office because there might not be toilet paper in the toilet, right? And so as a co-founder, but someone who's keen to scale my organization, bootstrapping was the only thing that I knew. Bootstrapping meaning that I'm going to sell something, I'm going to grow a little bit more, I'm going to hire more staff to help take off the burden of some of the things that I used to do. So social investment was great for us because we were able to do that. However, if time was my very first barrier, how would I even know that there are all of you in the room with all of these funds available that I could even find? Because my first priority is doing my job. And doing my job is doing and serving the people that I need to reach. The second point was knowledge. I didn't actually have that much knowledge about social investment. So many of the other entrepreneurs that we used to speak to will talk about seed funding and raising capital. And I was like, sorry, what? We don't have a tech company. We don't sell products. I don't understand how I'm going to find a magic investor to give me all of this money for my company to grow and be a unicorn. It doesn't seem like that's something that can happen for us. And it's only when we were approached, and this is the third point. So in my organization, we often work with underserved and underrepresented communities. And some other organizations might call these young people hard to reach. But some other organizations will say, well, they're not hard to reach, you're just not looking in the right place. Mm-hmm. So luckily for us, remember, I don't have time, I didn't have the knowledge, but Sumerian came to us. So they said, oh, we are looking for organizations like yours, let's have a conversation. But I have another barrier. Trust. Sorry, what? You want to give me money and you want what in return? So back to what you were saying about, the decolonization of where these funds come from. Sometimes we have these conversations and it feels so far reaching, but actually that's a very direct result of my thinking, my perhaps limited thinking at the time, right? So I'm looking at this predominantly white organization, come to two black co-founders serving predominantly black young people, asking and saying that we can help you, but for not much in return. Something's not matching up here. And I'll be honest, Isabel's in the room and Isabel and her team will know that I was like, sorry, what do you want? And what is the risk? And I mentioned this in our upper room, you might not consider this, but for social investors, we also consider financial risk. I'd rather go to an organisation that will give me free money with no strings attached. Like, I'll apply for that fund rather than this one because I actually don't know what the terms are. And so Samarian did a really interesting thing was, first of all, they approached us. Second of all, they said, well, why don't you speak to other people that we've funded? I was like, yeah, this feels too good to be true. You've probably got all the nice ones in this room. But again, I'm time poor, right? So we go to this event, and in the event, it's not just about meeting and networking with people they've already invested in. They've actually built a conference that benefits me. So I'm in the room and I'm hearing masterclasses about marketing and maybe cash management or financial awareness. And I'm like, okay, well, there's two reasons why I'm in this room that actually is really helpful for me personally, even if I don't get invested in them. So that was another really, really great thing. And I think all of those four things represent different barriers at any one point any social entrepreneur may face, in addition to the various other barriers personally they may face too. So I guess my call and challenge to you guys are, if you're finding that these organizations are hard to reach, go and find them. They're not probably wanting to run away from you, they're just probably time poor. They might not have the knowledge that you have, so have a conversation, like be patient. Make sure that when you are talking to them, you're being open and honest about what you're actually offering. I remember when we got into the deal stage and I was looking at the contract, and I'm not going to lie, I was waiting for things that pop out there. I was like, I'm ready. I've got the red pen coming, I've got the lawyers beside us, and I said, listen, if anything like equity comes up, or them needing to take decisions at board level comes up, or they want to override me and my co-founder, we're shutting that down. It didn't come up. I was like, wow, this is nice. Like, I really like this, and it worked for us because it was more about tailoring the experience for us rather than making us fit into a box that we had no clue we even wanted to be in the first place. And yeah, so that's how you could obviously very
Brilliant, thank you. I'm going to tie into what it was that you were saying there, and just kind of take the flip side, and I'll come to it in a second. But something that you were saying, Dr. Asha, is about, this is something within Black and racialised communities. This is part of our culture. It's something that we've always done. I don't know if you guys have heard it before. I've heard it in lots of different conferences. But in the Jamaican community and in the Jewish community and in different African communities, it might be called partner, or it might be called susso, or it might be called, something where money gets circulated around. So just to give you a quick example, all five of us would be in sort of like a syndicate, and we'd all put, £100 in a week. And then at the end of the week, Kamran would take it. The next week, Dr. Asha would take it. The next week, Josh would take it, and so on and so forth. And so this is something that we use, especially within the sort of the Windrush times and in the 80s within the Black community, to buy houses, to buy jobs, to be able to kind of move forward. But when you think about it, it's a credit union. It exactly operates as a credit union. And something that Dr. Asha was saying, which kind of really resonated, was the fact that, when organisations from Black and racialised communities do set up, and diverse communities as well do set up a social enterprise or a charity, we do so because of the need, not to be regulated. And that's where the problem sometimes comes on board, because that regulation is the one big barrier that stops us from actually doing the real need that it is that we're trying to do on the ground. But in saying that, we have people like Connect Fund, funding myself, and 12 advisors, and even more advisors, to diversify the social investment market, to be able to go out and reach more Black and racialised charities and social enterprises. We have people like Access, Big Society Capital, and Civ, right? Sorry, who's your one with the lab?
Access and Big Society.
Access and Big Society Capital, who are recognising this and are funding these organisations. We have the Pathway Fund, the first, Black wholesaler within the social investment sector. So things are happening, things are changing. And if you could just talk to that, Kamran, and then for all the panel, really just talk to that, to show that although there are these barriers, although there are these problems, although there are these challenges, that the sector is listening, And we're here and we want to see it grow bigger, but more addressing some of this. So to Karen.
I guess I'll follow your lead and I'll stand up as well. So I think some of the challenges with funding underserved communities in Bradford was, for example, the Muslim community has historically funded its own interventions. So if it was going to set up something within its community, what they would do is go to a high net worth individual, they would sell the social impact, they'd say, give us 100,000, £250,000, and we'll pay back over 5 years, 7 years. How much you lend to us is what we'll repay to you. And what would happen is over the years, they would do collections from within the community and they take that money and pay it back. Now, over time, these faith institutes, you have to remember, faith institutes have historically, like political institutes or organizations, not been backed by grant or social investment, right? So they've just kind of grown as organizations delivering social impact. So beyond the faith element of the organization, they've started doing health interventions, they've been working with young people, they've been working with the police. So they've been delivering a huge amount in that space, in their community, but they've not been accessing mainstream support to do so, right? And I think Azzees touched upon it, there's issues around trust as well. We can do this from within the community. Why do we need to go to other organizations to get that? The second thing is, I think within, especially within the South Asian community, there's a history and a culture of using grants. And if you go to them and say, well, there's this social investment, I don't think it's just about some South Asian communities. If I look at a place like Bradford, a lot of organizations don't see what the opportunity is in social investment. So there's a huge amount of work for us to do around changing how social investment can unlock opportunity for these organizations. And that's a big challenge within itself, and it's work that needs to be done. Now, how do you do that? I think if we look at a place like Bradford, they want to see people from within the community, people who they know, they trust, and have a relationship with, help them understand what the opportunity for them is to take on social investment. And social investment, if you say to them, we're going to lend you £250,000 and you have to repay £250,000 with 6% interest, they're going to say, well, why would we come to you? Number one, we tried to get grant funding. Number two, we tried funding it from within the community. Or number three, there was a point during COVID, it was cheaper to go to a high street bank and get a loan from them than it was to go to a social investor, right? So when we were developing Local Access Bradford, we really had to think about what is the additionality that we bring to social investment. Number one, we have to think about the leadership of our partnership. Who is leading a fund for a place like Bradford? And what we decided to do is we appointed 4 people that represented young people, women, white working class communities, and racially minoritized communities. And what we did is, on our model, we developed a partnership on a board that does the decision making, but we actually acknowledged their participation on that board by remunerating them, by sitting on that. And part of the challenge for that is, we see underserved communities all the time being offered what is allegedly an opportunity to showcase their work, to sit on a board, but actually that becomes a challenge for them around capacity. So what we decided to do is actually pay them to sit on the board and to contribute their views towards. So that really helped. Number two, I don't know if, well, on our partnership, we created a role called the honest broker role. And the honest broker role is unique, I think, to our partnership. And the pure purpose of that role is to go out and to make sure that our partnership is serving the communities that we're working with, not in the interest of the sort of wholesale fund, big society capital, not access, not individual partners on our organization, but actually the investee. And that's the role of the honest broker, to make sure that they're getting the best possible offer. Just before I wrap up, I think the other thing is, for me, it's a challenge to always think about setting up funds, which is, this is a fund for racially minoritized communities. This is a fund for women. I wanted to design a fund that removes the barriers that prevent people from these communities accessing mainstream services. So when I thought about a Sharia compliant fund, I wasn't comfortable using the term Sharia compliant, because what I thought that would do is displace disengagement or exclusion, because people would say, are the Muslim community getting a better offer than us? And all we're doing is saying we're engaging this community at the expense of that community. And that's something we really didn't want to do. So we very consciously chose not to use the term Sharia compliant. We were using the word faith sensitive, which then evolved into ethical. Because for us, it was more important to make sure an inclusive fund is inclusive for all. So we've designed a fund which is equitable. So whether you decide to take a standard social investment blended finance product from us, or whether you decide to take a Sharia compliant or ethical product from us, the grant element of the benefit of that program will be equal in both situations. And also whether you're Joe Blogs or Mrs. Khan looking at taking on social investment, you have the choice in which product you choose. So for us, we've designed something which has removed the barriers. And my final point is, I think it's absolutely imperative to get people from the communities that you're trying to serve to do the leadership and to give them time. Without that time, I was saying it to someone over break earlier on, the starting position for most social investors is over here, right? You're working with organizations that are over here. As an intermediary, if that's what we're called, my starting position's down here. Now, if you're giving a fund and saying distribute this and get people to engage with this and expect me to just kind of come in here and do that, either I'm going to be building a boat whilst trying to sail it, which is inevitably going to sink, or you've got to give me the time to close that gap before I'm able to do that. And I think that's really important. And I said it earlier on, Access Foundation, we work with Andrew and I can see him in the crowd over there. It was an absolute privilege to work with them, which they give us that time to be able to do that. When you're doing systems change doesn't happen overnight. It takes time and it needs investment and it needs capacity. So for us, I think that was really important. But now we're building up relationships. We've got such a strong pipeline of organizations that I will guarantee you without our intervention would never have access to social investment, but we've sold them an opportunity. And that opportunity is not just about finances. And for me, that is absolutely imperative. You can't go and sell social investment as a standalone financial product that benefits an organization. You really need to think about that wraparound support that individual receives or that organization receives when taking on social investment. So I hope that.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
So I think what's really important is to think about the instrument and therefore giving social investors the flexibility to create instruments that meets our needs. And we were the guinea pig basically for scenario. I said, yes, social investment, but I can't have it as debt because then everybody else that comes to us are going to look at our balance sheet and not understand the story of what I would take as a source. And because Sumerian was in a position to actually be creative and put a preference share instrument in place, that's opened up lots of opportunities for us and gave us positive experience of seeking social investment. But besides the money, the money wasn't the gold dust. It was the support of the ongoing guidance from them. They didn't want to see it on the board, but actually they get invited to strategy days. And quite early on, we found that we've not got governance in place as good as we want. So we had a board, but it wasn't operating as effectively. Our monthly management accounts was me going on zero and creating a report, trying to understand it. But with the support and because the Marion had experience in running their own business, quite quickly they could say, actually, you're transforming from a hub and spoke operating model to a tech business. You're restructuring your staffing organisation is being restructured. So the things that I've not even considered or even was able to think about in terms of future growth, I had somebody giving me insights to actually look in this direction, or I could go and say, this board member is really annoying me and all my headspace is taken up by this noise that's going on. How do I get rid of them, or what do I do to approach this? Because I can't focus in our board meetings with business taking place. I can have that honest conversation and say, this is not right, or I'm thinking of this, or I'm thinking of going to the board during COVID and asking for like 25k to invest in a new product. I'm going to take a risk. What do you think? So giving people, if you as an investor, it's not just about the money, but you need the flexibility and the ability to offer that to us so that we have a better experience of it.
Yeah. So I think one of the big challenges for me is the kind of implicit bias in the products and the practices that are available kind of in the social investment sector. And this is one of the things that I'm working on personally is this flexible finance scheme, which is a blended finance scheme, which is targeted at Black and racial minoritized-led organisations, charities and social enterprises. And there's kind of through working with CIV on this fund, we have kind of looked at how to make a fund more appropriate for our communities. And there's been changes that we've made so that the fund itself is based on the RLF, the Recovery Loan Fund, to finance and support adaptation to that. And if an organisation is eligible for flexible finance, then the minimum turnover requirements are lower, the minimum loan requirements are lower. And we also have kind of, in terms of like the way we can market outreach for the funds, there's direct outreach that we do as Ubele initiatives go to market. We have a separate web page which has different information on it. And then also if you apply to the fund, you get, or even before you apply to the fund, you get me, and you can work with me, support you to kind of develop your application, and then you have to support and throughout the process, and I just sit on your investment committees and advocate for the organisations that I work with, and I can say that I can really see the difference that makes. And there are some points during the kind of particularly the kind of assessment process where I can see that organisations might fall out of the process because there's a bit of a disconnect between the assessor and the organisation and their understanding, and I'm able to jump in and say that no, I think it's just a misunderstanding. It's just a kind of inequality and inequality information. And I will at times go and work directly with the customer or with the assessor and have a conversation with them and kind of work through those issues, and that has led to kind of successful investments. So having that set up is really useful, and I really encourage more of that within the sector.
Oh, hello. Left, and I just want to quickly just throw it out. I'm on time. I know, right? Has anyone got any questions that they would like for the panel? Be honest. Stop them. I know, right? They do bites. I think it's too young to eat them. No?
Yes, it's great to hear you. You mentioned young people, and I'm interested in them as an underrepresented group. What are you seeing? I'm interested around potential opportunities. So I don't know if I'm right. From what I've seen, a lot of young people are interested in social investment, are interested in investment, and are seeing it as a big unfit and from an investor, I'm really being raised that you don't take credit, what you've got is what you spend. However, us and one investor today, they're all about investment. So, I'm seeing the same.
I'm in quite a lot of co-founder, executive, Black-led groups, whether that be WhatsApp groups or conversations about investment. And I don't know to what extent we're a small echo chamber having these conversations, because we're less than 100. But I do recognise your PowerPoint earlier that spoke about the 2% to 5% of Black-led organisations or racially minoritized organisations actually accessing this fund, this type of funding. But there is a lot more conversation, and a lot more of my peers are. My peers, because I'm young. Sorry, I wasn't 12-year-olds, and they're like, you're so old. Anyway, yes, there's a lot of my peers who are now trying to sit on boards so that they can help have this level of influence, whether it be investment, whether it be angel investment, whether it be social investment. So I think there are a lot more conversations being had. I just question to what extent we're having enough of it. And I know that there's been a lot of reports since COVID and Black Lives Matter that speak about the gap in this arena, but I think there probably could be more conversation. And the only reason why I caveat that is because from the data that we're looking at and young people between the ages of 14 to 25, there's a lot of apathy about their futures. So I can only caveat this point of, excellence and aspiring and aspiration, but I do have to give the balance view that there is a lot of young people of all kinds, of all backgrounds who are just feeling really low. They have no confidence in themselves. They don't have confidence about their future, let alone, I don't know to what extent they're having conversations about entrepreneurialism. So I think it's a complicated and balanced perspective, but hopefully that can give some insight.
My question is, and it's before you, if you could maybe give an example. What does investment readiness look like to you from the perspective of being
So if we can make that 30 seconds or less, that would be great. So sorry.
What does investment readiness look like?
Yeah, in 30 seconds.
I think investment ready, for me, there's a whole issue about supporting racially minoritized communities, which is about system failure or ecosystem failure. When we talk about ecosystem, it's not just the responsibility of the social investment sector to be supporting these infrastructure organizations that have failed these communities as well. So for me, investment readiness is about getting an organization to a stage where if we talk about due diligence and risk, we have minimized their risk rating, and we have increased everything that we could do to make them a well-governed organisation, whether that's having an independent board of directors or trustees, having a clear mission, preventing mission drift, all of the stuff what we would look at for good governance. For me, it's about supporting them to get to that stage. And I've mentally got this hashtag, which is called Remove the Excuse, because I've sat on so many funding panels where they use due diligence as an excuse to exclude communities, right? And I think good governance and investment readiness is about getting an organisation to a stage where due diligence cannot be used as an excuse or a reason not to invest or fund in that organisation.
So for me, it's mindset. I had no business plan, I had no financials, I literally had a conversation, I put everything on the table and kind of answered their questions and had a plan. And I was ready to take the leap of faith, so I think that's where it started from.
For me, it's like as simply as possible. Like if we are to kind of invest in them, are they is that gonna have a positive impact? But pulling that out, I think there is a point around like, is it gonna have a positive impact? Are they gonna go and have a positive impact in the community? Can they pay the money back, or we were having a conversation around risk in another room earlier, and are they going to pay back the money to the investor, but are the consequences of the risk of not paying that money to the organisation we're investing in, like, is that organisation or what they're doing? And then there's this like broader question or broader kind of thing that I often think about. This point I have in my mind is like, when thinking about what does equality and justice look like, one of the things I always think about is that you can get something wrong and that doesn't limit your future opportunities or chances, it can damage your future opportunities or chances. And yeah, I think that's something I also hold with the investment where it's like, are you ready, or not even are you ready, is the concept or the investor ready to be in a position where it's not going to damage your future chances.
One word. No, that's it. Sounds over.
Okay, so the only thing I would say is confidence. Last year, April, before we took investment, we probably applied for funding up to about 50,000. The investment was 100,000. This year, we're looking at future investment for 500,000, and I'm applying for a program of $1 million. That level of confidence, that a conversation, someone coming to me talking about our organisation and just what they saw in us has led me to be so confident in the business and my team and supporting that level of growth and that ambition that now I feel more ready for the future. And I think you can't underestimate the conversations that you have with people, whether the deal goes through or not, but just that conversational confidence is really, really helpful for a co-founder.
Confidence. Thank you.